There we go. Hello. How's it looking, Gabrielle? Are we on?
Give us about 10 seconds and it should catch up on the actual stream.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Oh, now I'm seeing it over here.
Not yet.
Let's see. Oh, there we go. Are we on?
Yep.
Okay, good. Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is part 3 of our Parent AI series for District 214. Tonight, we're going to be talking about helping you to help your students with their learning and their education using AI as the tool. But before we do that, I thought we would just quick introduce ourselves. Who's here today? Once I figure out which screen to click. There we go. So I'm Katie Page. I'm the Instructional Technology Coordinator in District 214, which means that I get to support staff and also students with anything having to do with educational technology. Of course, most recently, that would be AI, the use of AI, and everything having to do with that. Gabriella?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Gabriella Setz-Jackson, Director of Professional Learning, and I'm fortunate to work with Katie in her role, and I also oversee our instructional coaches, graduate study, professional learning for our admin, support staff, teachers, and we work closely with Paul.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Fikes. I'm the Assistant Director of Technology Services and Support. I oversee all of the tech teams in the buildings, the different help desks that students go to for assistance. And on top of that, I work with other departments to try and coordinate all of these fun things.
And thanks again for joining us. Just as a quick reminder, we are presenting from home. So if you hear a dog bark or a small child come running in, it's all great because we're all human, right? And we're all in this together. So nice casual evening. We're going to talk about a few things, hopefully to help you out with your student around AI. So tonight is going to be a little bit of a shorter program, unless of course you have tons of questions at the end, which is great. But we are assuming in this part 3 that you have a little bit of knowledge around AI. You can always watch and go back to part 1 and part 2 if you're feeling a little stuck or a little lost, or like we kind of jumped in and you weren't quite ready. So those recordings are available on the email that was sent to you. I'm going to attach them again. You'll get another email after tonight. So our first 2 sessions, the first one was an overview, and then the second one was all about translation. And then tonight, we're just going to show you some concrete examples. And then, of course, at the end, we'll have some time for questions. So we like to be intentional with our AI use, and we're trying to be as environmentally friendly as possible. So before you use AI, we thought maybe we would start with some questions that you could ask your child. So let's say your high schooler comes home and you know, they're just like, they're stuck and they're upset about something that they're trying to learn and they just don't get it. And you know, they're venting to you, and some of these things are just good parenting. But when I read it, I thought, oh, I wish that, you know, my children are grown, but I wish I would have thought of some of these things. And Paul, you know, his kids are little, so he can put these in his pocket for later on. So I thought it was worth it to kind of start with a few of these. There's 5 of them on the screen. You might want to ask your kid on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of this is do I want to vent versus I need a strategy? Or what part of this makes sense to you, and where does it seem to, you know, lose a thread? And then the third one here, a resource check. If I weren't here, you could say to your kid, where's the first place you would look for an answer, you know, and maybe help them to get to that resource. And then to be a partner, and really for that piece, we can really jump in and use AI to help with the learning. And a good one, and I actually use this in my personal and professional life, what is the smallest next step I can take in the next 10 minutes, right? Especially when things feel overwhelming. So we want to be intentional with our AI use. It's just a good spot to start. So I would love it if you followed along. If you have that technical aptitude to do those 2 things at once, you could open up your preferred website. In District 214, we use Gemini. So you would go to gemini.google.com. That's where your student will go. They can log in with their 214 credentials or whatever AI platform that you prefer. I've got a few on here, ChatGPT or Claude. Any one of those are fine if you would like to follow along. Of course, if you're watching the recording, you can always just pause this and try these things as we move along. Okay, the first thing I want to point out tonight is on Gemini, they have something called guided learning. And your students will see this on their Gemini Teen. You will see it if you log in even on the free version. And it puts up some guardrails where it walks you through step-by-step learning something. So I had just typed in on this prompt right here, help me learn about geometry. And it asks immediately, where would you like to start? So it shows, a list of things that would be common. Of course, if you were trying to help your student, you would plug in something a little bit more specific. And it's a nice little guided learning tool. It doesn't just give the answers, it really walks you through step by step. If you're using ChatGPT, they have something very similar called study mode, and Claude also has another tool like this, and it's called deep contextual learning. And all of them are pretty good. So I would check out the tools that are embedded, that are meant for learning as a first step. I've got a whole list of prompts to go through here that I think will be useful if you're sitting down to try to help your child, or you could even pass these along to them to let them help themselves. Again, in the email that you'll get at the end of today, I've listed these prompts for you along with an overview of everything that we did in the first two parts of the series as well. So when you sit down to whatever, Gemini or ChatGPT, the prompt will matter when you're prompting these large language models for getting back useful information for you. So here are a couple just to kind of get you started. So you could type in, what are the 3 most common mistakes high schoolers make when learning, and then put in the topic. Maybe your child is learning algebra and they can't figure out a 3-variable equation, something like that. My assumption is that you would be sitting with your kid or helping your kid to be prompting. And then you can say things like, give me a heads up on what to look for in my child's work so I can help them self-correct before they get frustrated. You can be really specific when you're prompting. Another good one is an analogy generator. You can say, my child can't figure out photosynthesis. Give me 3 analogies. And then you want to attach that to something that your kid really loves, like if they're into gaming or if they're a dancer, if they like to cook. And so you can have AI generate these analogies with something very specific that will help connect your child to the content a little better. Another one is you can ask for a Socratic tutor. And so you can say, I do not want to give them the answers, but I want you to have, a back and forth with questioning. So give 4 or 5 leading questions I can ask them along the way. And then the last one that I really love is the real world relevance. All of us high school teachers know I taught high school physics for 23 years. And, when am I ever going to use this? This is what kids say, right? It drives you crazy. Math teachers hear it all of the time. And so I used math in my example here, and it says, my child is asking, when am I ever going to use this, regarding polynomials? Can you give me 3 concrete examples of how math is used in careers like, and then again, put in what your kid really loves, are they a dancer, or do they like to cook, or, whatever it is. And so I went ahead and tried this one for you so you can see the example. So I put in, my child keeps saying, when am I going to ever use polynomials? I put in that exact prompt there. And you can see it gave me some analogies here, one on game design. And it talks about the curves that are in game design. So if you're trying to explain, the math to your kid, it put it in there for digital sculpting. It talks about where the math comes in. And then it says, do you want me to create some sample problems based on one of these careers to see what it actually looks like? And so I said, yes. And so it went ahead and it gave me some examples in a quiz form, opened right in the window. And so I could sit and practice with my kid. And it's talking about a game designer, which is hopefully a little bit, like right in the wheelhouse if that's what your your child really likes. So just some great ways to prompt when you are using AI to help your kid is to be very specific and talk to it like you're talking to a math tutor and say, like, I'm really trying to connect with my student. A couple of examples here, specifics around how platforms work. So when you're using AI, it gives you a spot where you can attach a file, a photo, you can put, if you're a coder, you can import some code, all sorts of things that you can attach. In this case, I'm showing you where you can attach a file or a photo because I'm assuming that your student came home with their iPad or a sheet of paper, and you're going to take your phone and you are going to take a picture of the problem or take a picture of the handwritten, notes that your student made, and then you can upload that into Gemini or ChatGPT, whatever you are using. And it will actually read, a handwritten note. It'll read if you have an actual document, you can attach that as well. And so what you're seeing in this screenshot here is, I just showed you where the plus is for Gemini, all of the platforms, very similar thing. And then you would just attach any photo or document there. And you prompt it then the same, in that same window, you would give it a prompt. And so I did that here as an example. I attached just some math homework. And then I said, I'm trying to help my child get started with the assignment. Where do I begin with problems 1 through 3? Because maybe I don't even understand what it is. So I'm going to let this Gemini read the worksheet, tell me what it is, and then tell me how to get started with problems 1 through 3. So you can see my prompt, frankly, wasn't even that great. It was pretty bare bones, but it's going to come up with a great spot for me to start. So what it did is it read the document that I attached. It was a PDF. It told me what was there and then told me exactly how to get started with problem 1 and then exactly how to get started with problems 2 or 3. And then at the end, it asked if, do you want to go on with problem 4? And then you could prompt it however you want. You can keep iterating in that window and say, hold on, I still don't understand problem 1. Help me explain it to my child, and it'll go back and do that for you. Now, on the student side, you can see I've got the iPad here, and theirs looks a little different because they're inside the Gemini Teen app, but they can also use guided learning. So if they're using AI to help them understand a concept, they really should be turning on that guided learning tool inside of Gemini. You might want to remind them that it's there. Because it automatically puts up the guardrails of an instructor, like as a teacher-student kind of a model. Great way for kids to learn. So they can use it on the app on their iPad, or they can just go to a browser on a laptop or even on their phone or even on their iPad. They can open up a browser as well and just log in with their District 214 credentials to access Gemini. There's a really cool new thing on Gemini. It's kind of hard to see. This is the end of the prompt that happened here. And way down here, you can see there's a little check, and I'm going to zoom in here for you to see it. And Gemini has this brand new feature called Check Results. It's fantastic. My funny little arrow there, I just kind of hand drew that in real quick today to show you, circled where it is. And if you click on that, it'll go back through its own answer to you. So it is checking itself for accuracy, which is great. So it'll tell you where it found information on the internet and it feels confident that it's correct. If it's, in orange, it's going to say, like, I gave you a link, there's a link provided. And then if it's not highlighted, there's either not enough information to evaluate it, or it wasn't like intended to give you any kind of factual information. It was just like information in between. So it's kind of great. It gives you and it gives your student confidence in the information that has been provided back. And so they'll know if something isn't right because it'll show them in this little check feature. So something fun that maybe your kids don't know about. So you can teach them a little something about Gemini today. Go and show them that little feature. Students can do the same thing with attaching, and they're already all doing it all of the time. You can see here I have an example of a handwritten piece of work from a student. And this student in particular does not speak English as their first language. They do all of their thinking in their home language. And so they were writing on a sheet of paper in their native language, and then they load it to Gemini to translate it to English for their teacher. Fantastic use of Gemini. It allows them to show their thinking and not have language get in the way as a barrier for the teacher seeing if the student understands what's happening. And so that's just another great use for kids when they're using Gemini. Here's another student example. This one came from an AP Spanish class, and it was meant to show how they are working with AI as a partner inside of class. But I thought it was a great example to show so that you could talk about with your kids as well about how to use AI as a partner outside of school when they're doing their homework as well. You know, they want to, of course, always have the guidelines from their teacher, whether or not AI is allowed to be used, and if it's something that they should be using or not. You know, you'll see that with each assignment from teachers or in their syllabus. But if they've been given the green light, they can go ahead and in this example, this student was emailing an imaginary person for the assignment, which is very fun. I know it's very hard to read. It's very small. But in the black boxes are the work that the student was iterating back and forth with AI. She had AI evaluate her writing with an AP rubric. So just like I showed you before with the little plus key, she added a rubric using the plus key. She also added her work, and then she asked AI to take her writing against the rubric and tell her where she could improve. And then she had to write a lot of it handwritten so that the teacher saw that AI wasn't writing it, right? She was doing this in class. So she hand wrote using the feedback that she got from AI, from Gemini. So, and then of course the teacher asks them to include the back and forth with Gemini in their notes so that she can see what they iterated, what they loaded, and it's all very transparent. But another great use case. And show that one to your students as well. One thing that I wanted to show you here before we wrap up today is Notebook LM. So the whole night we've been talking about using Gemini, or some of you use ChatGPT or Claude. Notebook is something that Google has. Our students have access to it. Our staff, everyone is really diving in and starting to use this. If you have college-age kids, fantastic for kids in college. A lot of our staff are starting to use it actually to keep documents organized. We even have people like in the business department in 214 starting to use Notebook LM because it's just a great way to take a variety of resources, docs, PDFs, photos, websites, videos, and just curate it all in one spot. And we're calling it a notebook. The cool thing for kids is once you have all of your things loaded here, all of your resources, either from your teacher or things that you have generated, it will automatically generate for you quizzes, podcasts, flashcards, all kinds of things. Really, really fantastic technology. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, I suggest sitting down with your kids and take a look at it or see if maybe they've been using it yet. It is really, really a fantastic tool, especially when students are caught up on a subject or content or one little skill that they're really struggling to grasp. This is a great place to go because they have so many different options as to how they can consume that information. Something hopefully will land for them within this tool. So I highly suggest checking that one out. Okay, we blazed through that one. We have two other series that you can take a look at, and we are open for questions as well. A couple things before we get back to taking your live questions. I just wanted to address these challenges And academic integrity, we're talking about in the district a lot. And it said, aren't kids just having AI do all of the work? And really, we are not. We're trying to really encourage students to follow our RISE framework, which is respect, integrity, safety, and equity. And of course, staff are reimagining the way that they are presenting their content all of the time. Critical thinking, oftentimes people talk about how AI hallucinates and gives biased information. We're trying to make sure that we're teaching kids how to check this information, how to not just take it all as fact all of the time. You want to check your work all of the time, keep the human in the loop, make sure that it starts with the human and that it ends with the human every time. Environmental impact, we talked about that a little bit at the top of this program. We know that AI uses a significant amount of energy, especially water, and we want to just make sure anytime kids are using AI that they're doing it intentionally and not just plugging anything in, you know, all day long. And then the job market is changing so rapidly. Every day there's something about it in the news. And so in District 214, we think the greatest risk is not teaching kids how to use AI, which is the whole reason we're having this series here, is to keep the community and parents in the loop as well with understanding what these tools can do. Okay, with that, we are excited to take any questions you might have. Of course, you can always just email me directly. I had sent you the link, so you can feel free to reply to that email if you have questions. But we're hoping that you ask your child how they're using AI strategically this week and start the conversation. So Gabriella or Paul, did we have any questions today?
Not yet. Paul posted that we welcome your questions in the chat. So those of you who are on watching, feel free to add.
Oh, and I should have mentioned at the beginning, you have to be signed in to do that. I kind of blazed past that one. Whoops. Okay. Well, if you are signed in, you can ask a question in the chat right now, or like I said, you can email us anytime. Gabriella and I are easy to find.
Yes.
Anything, Paul? No?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, then we will wrap it up for tonight. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Okay, I saw 11 watching.